Good evening, visitors. Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Dennis Stockman, and joining us today from the Australian Army is Warrant Officer Brian Moore. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria, and RSL Queensland who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by visitors to the memorial. Please stand and join in singing the national anthem. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this National Memorial and Museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and operations for more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Private Raymond Leslie Goldsmith. Raymond Goldsmith was born in 1894, the second son of Ernest and Eliza Goldsmith of Wyong, New South Wales. Known to friends and family as Ray, he came from a pioneering family that had been in the Wyong district for several generations. Ray was educated at the local public school and was reportedly always a keen sport, indulging a good deal in football and fishing. He grew to just over 6 feet tall and somewhat unusually was tattooed, bearing flags and a heart on his left upper arm. He later moved to Yass, where he found work on the railway duplication works that began around 1914. Ray's grandfather, John, had a service medal from his father, who had fought in the Crimean War in the 1850s, and had almost certainly shown his grandchildren the medal. Ray enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force shortly after the outbreak of war in 1914, and wrote to his mother saying, "Mother, it is my duty to go. My great-grandfather fought for us in the Crimean War, and I deem it my duty to help the Empire." Ray Goldsmith was posted to the 3rd Battalion, and after a short period of training in Australia, sailed with the 1st contingent on the 19th of October 1914. After a brief stop in Albany, Western Australia, the 3rd Battalion proceeded to Egypt, arriving in early December and continued training in the desert. The 3rd Battalion formed the part of the 2nd and the 3rd waves of the landing at Gallipoli on the 25th of April 1915. The men rushed ashore to secure the shaky front line on the heights above the beach and spent much of the following days establishing a position. On the 19th of May, the Turks conducted a major counter-attack and tried to remove the Australians. During this attack, Private Goldsmith was shot in the right shoulder and was evacuated from the peninsula later the same day. After about a month in hospital, Private Goldsmith returned to Gallipoli on the 26th of June 1915. At this time, the 3rd Battalion was largely involved in defending the front line, with short period of rest in the limited space available out of Turkish reach. On the 25th of July, Private Ray Goldsmith was struck in the head by a piece of shrapnel from a bursting Turkish shell. He was not immediately evacuated as he had the first time. He was wounded but was treated on the peninsula. His wounds proved too severe, however, and he died on the 1st of August 1915. In Australia, Ray's mother, Eliza, received a message in August to say her son had been wounded, and the next day a second message arrived to say he was dead. She wrote to Senator George Pearce saying, "I know I'm only one mother among many thousands that are mourning for their beloved soldier sons, but I would be extremely grateful if you could get me any information regarding the last days of my darling son. It would be of comfort to me to know the nature of his wounds and where he died and was buried." There was little information to send to Eliza Goldsmith, although authorities later ensured the family received pictures of Ray's grave. Ray Goldsmith was buried in Beach Cemetery, Anzac, where he lies under the words, "In memory of beloved son of Mr. and Mrs. Goldsmith, Wyong." He was 21 years old. His name is listed on the roll of honour on my right, amongst almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Ray Leslie Goldsmith, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Poziere or in the low scrub at Gallipoli with his poor tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain has thought in his last moments, well, it's over, but in Australia they'll be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. Thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial, and good evening.